Here we have a right foot. We're going to look at the bones and bony landmarks. So you can see we have the hallux with the big toe, and then the phalanges, the digits here. The calcaneus. You can see the calcaneal tuberosity, the peroneal trochlea, the groove for the peroneus longus. We turn a little more lateral. You can really see that groove right here. Okay, so this is the lateral surface of the calcaneus. The talus sits on top. And if you see on the talus, that's the trochlea. That whole big chunk there is the body, the neck, and then the head. If we look at the posterior surface of the talus, you can see more medial. You've got these two tubercles. Now on your McL and Lcl of the ankle, the posterior ligaments that make up those two groups, they attach here. So on the medial side, the tibia would come down with the medial malleolus right about here. So that ligament that attaches that medial malleolus to the talus, that's the attachment site. Same thing for the fibula. So that lateral malleolus would come down over here, and the ligament attaching the lateral malleolus and the talus is right here. So that's the lateral tubercle of the talus and the medial tubercle of the talus. In between those tubercles, you have a groove. Note that the flexors run down the back of the tibia and fibula, and those that run down the tib, they hook underneath medially that sustentaculum tali, which we'll look at in just a second. And there's a groove right here between those two tubercles, and that's the groove for the flexor hallucis longus. So that's just the groove that one of those flexors runs through underneath, and then it would attach to the bottom of the big toe. That's its pathway. You can follow it through that groove. Now let's look at the medial side. Calcaneus, right? You have that big old shelf. That's the sustentaculum tali. Sustentaculum means support, tali in reference to the talus. So the sustentaculum tali, that's the support for the talus. It leaves a big groove underneath it where those flexors run that we just talked about. And that's your sustentaculum groove or sulcus. Talus on top. Now let's look at it just straight on. Just like this is your foot, okay? So the right foot. So right in front of the talus, you have the navicular. Right in front of the calcaneus, a little bit more lateral, you have the cuboid. Then you have in front of the navicular 3 cuneiforms, the medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiforms. We have our metatarsals. You can see on the 5th metatarsal, you have that huge knot there. It's the tubercle of the base of the 5th metatarsal. That with the cuboid, you can see there's a huge groove here on the bottom of the cuboid. That right there makes a huge groove for the peroneus longus tendon that works with your peroneal trochlea. So those peroneals, peroneus brevis and longus, they hook around that trochlea, but longus continues through that groove to its 2 attachments here and here. Peroneus brevis comes down around that trochlea, and it stops though at the base of the 5th metatarsal. So short, the long keeps going. All right, now if you look medially on the underside of your navicular, you can see a little bump there. That's your navicular tubercle or navicular tuberosity, an important attachment site as well. Metatarsals, phalanges. Now when we're looking at the phalanges, it's important to note your hallux, the big toe, only has 2 phalanges, which means it's going to have 1 phalangeal joint. The other digits, though, they each have 3 phalanges. 2 joints for each digit. So this first row of joints between the first 2 phalanges for all of these, that's your proximal interphalangeal joint, your PIP, the PIP. Hallux doesn't have a distal interphalangeal joint because it only has 2 phalanges. The rest of these, though, they not only have a proximal interphalangeal joint, they also have a distal interphalangeal joint, DIP, the dip. So the PIP and the dip. You, my friends, have to spell everything out. I do not allow abbreviations. All right, if we split just based on mass and how the bones come together, our tarsals, or 7 tarsals, into 2 groups, you can see we can split them right down the middle. That's going to be your mid-tarsal or transverse tarsal joint. Where the tarsals meet the metatarsals, that's the Metatarsals Phalangeal joint. Where the metatarsals meet the phalanges, we have the Metatarsals Phalangeal joint. And then again, of course, we have the proximal interphalangeal joint and then the distal interphalangeal joint.